Hi Reddit, I'm Gina, 31, female. I'm here to share some issues I've been dealing with, and honestly, I could really use your opinions. Plus, I just need to vent. It's about my family, and let me tell you, there's a lot to unpack. So get ready because this is going to be a long vent session. So, the story I'm about to share happened 5 years ago, but to really understand it, I need to give you some context. At that time, I had just started my corporate job and things were actually going pretty well. My family includes my mom, dad, and younger sister. My parents are seriously traditional, like everything revolves around their culture and long standing family values. For example, our holidays were all about strict traditions. We had to follow every ritual and family gathering to the letter. Sunday mornings were reserved for church, not just any church, but the one our family had been going to for generations. Missing a service was practically unheard of. My sister, being the more compliant one, went along with whatever our parents wanted. If they told her to dress a certain way, she did. If they wanted her to study a specific subject or marry someone from our cultural background, she didn't question it. She was the model daughter, always making them proud. I, on the other hand, was the rebel. In high school, I refused to wear the traditional clothes they insisted on and stuck to jeans and t-shirts, which they saw as disrespectful. When it came to college, they wanted me to study something practical, like business or law, but I chose marketing because it was what I was passionate about. I also decided to work in a corporate job instead of joining the family business. To them, this was like a huge slap in the face. There were also more personal clashes. When I was 17, I had a massive fight with my parents because I refused to participate in traditional dance that had been performed by women in our family for generations. I wasn't interested. I didn't see why I had to do it just because it was expected. They thought I was dishonoring the family, and it turned into a weeks long argument. So, to my parents, I was the difficult one, the daughter who couldn't just follow the rules. But my sister was different. Despite everything, we've always had a really strong bond. She's 2 years younger than me and was the only one who really understood where I was coming from. She knew that my rebellion was just me trying to live my life on my own terms. Another example of our family's traditional values was how they handled milestones and celebrations. When I graduated from college, they were adamant about throwing this big formal party with all the relatives, traditional foods and speeches. I was hoping for a more laid back get together with just close friends, but that wasn't in the cards. They wanted it to be a grand event, to maintain the family's reputation, even though it wasn't really what I was into. The same thing happened with personal decisions. They had strong opinions about who I should date and how I should manage my money, all based on tradition. They expected me to date someone from our cultural background and follow specific social norms, which felt pretty stifling. When I decided to move out and live on my own after college, they were worried I was straying from the traditional path of staying with family until marriage. They didn't get why I valued independence over sticking to the old ways. And don't get me started on buying my first car. They had their hearts set on a specific make and model that they thought was respectable in our community. I wanted something that fit my style and budget better, but they really pushed for the car they deemed appropriate, turning what should have been a personal choice into a bit of a stressful situation. Anyway, that's how things were. For the past couple of years, my family had been on my case about getting married. According to them, I had to get married before my sister could. She was already engaged in an arranged marriage, and while the guy was just okay, in my opinion, she seemed fine with it, so it wasn't really my place to say much. But for me, marriage just wasn't on my radar. I'd always dreamed of becoming a mom, and adoption had always been something I was passionate about. To me, adoption was a beautiful way to give a child a loving home and a better life. I love the idea of providing a safe and nurturing environment for a child who needed it. When I first shared my plans with my family, they were furious. They dismissed the idea outright and were upset that I wasn't following the traditional path they had envisioned for me. They thought it was a crazy idea, especially since I wasn't married. I wasn't about to let their disapproval stop me, so I went ahead with my plans. I got a place in my name, and with a stable income and everything in order, I decided to adopt as a single mom. It was a big step, but I was ready for it. After the process, I was finally able to adopt my beautiful baby girl. The adoption process was long and emotionally challenging, but meeting her was worth every bit of it. When I met her, I knew she was the one. She had this bright, curious smile that just stole my heart. I remember the moment she was placed in my arms. It felt like everything I had been through was worth it. Choosing her felt like the best decision I'd ever made, and I was so excited to give her the love and care she deserved. My family went absolutely crazy when I adopted my baby. Only my sister was genuinely happy about it. She would speak so sweetly to my daughter, showering her with affection, but the rest of my family, they were furious. To them, because the baby wasn't blood related, she wasn't a real grandchild. Hearing that made me absolutely livid. My mom was the hardest to deal with. She couldn't hide her disappointment and made it clear every chance she got. When I first told her about the adoption, she was silent for a moment before saying, "You know, adopting a child isn't the same as having your own. You can't just expect us to accept her as family." Later on, she kept repeating that the baby was not really ours and kept asking me, "Why couldn't you just wait until you were married?" Every family gathering turned into a lecture on how I was not following family traditions. My dad's reaction was just as bad, if not worse. He was so dismissive and harsh. When I brought my daughter to visit, he barely acknowledged her. When he did speak, it was to suggest that I should return the baby if I wasn't able to handle the pressure. He said, "If you're going to cause this much trouble, maybe you should consider giving her up." It felt like he saw my daughter as a burden, a problem to be solved rather than a child to be loved. Extended family members joined in on the criticism. At family events, I would overhear comments like, "She's not even related by blood. How can she be a part of this family?" Or, "This is such a shame. She's bringing shame to our name." One of my cousins even said, "Why would you choose to adopt when you could have just had your own baby?" It was like my choice to adopt was an attack on their values and beliefs. Every interaction felt like a battle, and the negativity was overwhelming. It was incredibly hurtful to hear all this criticism when I was just trying to do what I felt was right for my daughter and myself. Despite all the resistance, I stayed committed to my decision because I knew that providing a loving home for my daughter was the most important thing. Things took a serious turn when I was at a family gathering. I was already trying my best to tolerate all the negative comments, but then my aunt made a comment that crossed a line. She asked, "Is it because you're infertile?" My mom gasped and immediately asked me in front of everyone why I hadn't mentioned it sooner. I was floored. The truth is, I wasn't infertile, or if I was, it didn't matter. I had no idea if I was or wasn't, and honestly, I didn't care. My decision to adopt wasn't about my ability to have biological children. It was about my desire to adopt. I wanted to provide a loving home to a child in need, and that was my only focus. Infertility wasn't a taboo to me, nor was adoption. It was simply about making a choice that felt right for me. Discussing my fertility, or lack thereof, in a family gathering with everyone around was beyond inappropriate. I was done with the invasive questions and judgment. It wasn't about whether I could have biological children. It was about my decision to adopt, and that's what should have been respected. The conversation about my personal health in such a public setting felt like a total violation of my privacy. I was tired of having my choices and personal matters scrutinized and judged by everyone. I was so furious after that whole situation that I completely lost it. I yelled at them, letting them know how hurt I was by their invasive questions and judgment. I told them they had no right to invade my privacy and criticize my decisions. Their reaction? They called me disrespectful and accused me of causing drama. They actually said my outburst showed how I couldn't handle their concerns, which just made me more frustrated. Instead of trying to understand where I was coming from, they just blamed me for the conflict. Things got really ugly after that. They started shunning me. My mom stopped answering my calls and would only send short, cold messages. When I tried to visit, she'd either ignore me or not open the door. My dad was just as bad. He wouldn't even acknowledge me if we crossed paths. Extended family members joined in on the ostracism. My aunt, who made the infertility comment, started avoiding me at family events and would give me cold glares. Family friends who used to be supportive now looked at me with judgmental stares and whispered about me behind my back. It felt like everyone was turning against me, like I was some kind of family outcast. The only person who stayed in my corner was my sister. She tried to mediate and help smooth things over, but even she struggled against a wave of disapproval from everyone else. The whole experience was emotionally draining and heartbreaking, especially for my daughter, who didn't deserve to be caught up in all this family drama. Of course, I didn't take her to these gatherings, and she had no idea about the situation, but she expected her grandparents to love her, not avoid her. I couldn't handle it anymore. The constant negativity and criticism from my family were unbearable, so I decided to cut ties and stop visiting them. I told my parents I was done with their toxic behavior and wouldn't be coming around anymore. Their reaction was incredibly cold. They seemed almost relieved and said, "Great, we only have one daughter and that's your sister. She's the only one we recognize and know now." They made it crystal clear that I was dead to them. And when it came to my daughter, they were even worse. They said, "She's not our blood, so she means nothing to us. We don't see her as part of our family." They flat out dismissed my daughter and made it clear they thought my choice to adopt was a huge mistake. They actually said, "Don't come back when you realize how wrong you are." Their comments were brutal. My mom told me, "You're no longer welcome here. If you can't follow our values and respect our traditions, don't expect to be part of our lives." My dad was just as harsh, saying, "We don't want to see you or your adopted child again. You've made your choices, so deal with the consequences." Extended family members joined in with the same attitude. One aunt said, "You've thrown away everything we stand for. It's like you don't even care about the family." My sister tried to intervene, but nothing worked. She tried to explain how their reaction was hurting me and my daughter, but they were unmoved. They were set in their ways and refused to change. So I made the painful decision to cut them off for good. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was necessary for my sanity and for creating a healthy environment for my daughter. Leaving them behind was devastating, but it was the only way to move forward. That's what happened 5 years ago. Fast forward to today, I haven't seen or spoken to my family in years. The only connection I have left is with my sister. She married the guy from her arranged marriage about 4 years ago. We don't talk often, maybe once or twice a year. We only see each other a few times a year. But she's the only family I have left, and I'm grateful for the bond we share. My daughter is now 9 years old. She's grown into such a beautiful, kind person, and she's truly my everything. Watching her grow up has been the most rewarding experience of my life. I'm doing everything I can to give her a loving and supportive environment, and I think we've built a pretty great life together. Everything was going well for us until I got an unexpected message from my parents. I was shocked and confused. Out of nowhere, they reached out after all these years. It's made me question what's behind their sudden contact and what they want now. So the message from my parents was an invitation to their 50th wedding anniversary. Along with it, I got a personal message from my mom. In it, she said she wanted to bridge the gap between us and hoped we could all meet up. She mentioned that she wanted to see her darling grandchild, and that since my sister is infertile, my daughter was the only grandchild they knew. Seriously, what? After all these years of shunning me and treating my daughter like she didn't matter, now they're reaching out because they want to meet her. It feels like a slap in the face. It feels like a slap in the face. They've completely ignored my daughter and me for years, and now they suddenly want to act like everything is fine just because my sister can't have kids? I was honestly baffled and unsure how to handle this. I reached out to my sister immediately. I needed to understand why she hadn't told me about her infertility and why it seemed to be such a big issue for the family. I remembered the way I was shunned and called infertile. When we spoke, she broke down completely. She told me that my parents had been pressuring her to have a baby for years. When it didn't happen, everyone jumped to the conclusion that she must be infertile. She had even suggested adoption as a solution, but her husband and mother-in-law are strictly against it. They believe that having a biological child is the only way to go. At family gatherings, she's been subjected to taunts and pitying looks from relatives who blame her for not having kids. This constant scrutiny has been taking a toll on her marriage as well, causing arguments and tension with her husband. She admitted that she hadn't been able to tell me all this before because she didn't want to add to my pain or seem like she was seeking sympathy. Hearing everything she's been going through was heartbreaking. I felt awful for not knowing the full extent of her struggles and for how the family's attitudes had put so much pressure on her. It made me realize just how much she's been enduring and how complex the situation really is. I was really confused by everything I had just learned, but hearing about my sister's struggles made me feel bad. I decided I should visit my parents for their anniversary. However, I didn't want to bring my daughter along. I wasn't sure how they would react to her, given their past behavior. So, the day of the anniversary arrived and I went to their celebration alone. It was strange walking into that event after so many years of being cut off, and I wasn't sure what to expect. I hoped it would be a chance to figure things out. When I walked into the anniversary party, I was completely thrown off by how sweet and welcoming my family was suddenly being. After years of being cut off and ignored, they were now acting like nothing had ever happened. It felt weird and uncomfortable. Meanwhile, my sister was practically ignored. The roles had totally flipped. I was now the favorite because I had a child and a stable job, while my sister was left out, seemingly punished for her infertility. This sudden shift in their behavior made me really angry. It was clear that their new affection for me was only because they were disappointed with my sister. They seemed to be using me as a replacement for the grandchild they'd always wanted. It was incredibly frustrating and hurtful to see how they were treating her. At the party, I also met my sister-in-law for the first time. Her mother-in-law was especially judgmental. She started by asking me if I still planned on getting married. I just smiled and avoided getting into a debate. I didn't want to cause a scene at the party. Then the conversation took a really uncomfortable turn. Her mother-in-law started talking about how in the past everyone thought I was the family's disappointment. But now, according to her, my sister had become the real letdown. Her husband chimed in, suggesting that my sister should look up to me because of my successful career. I was taken aback. I asked him why she wasn't working, especially since she had always been a top student. He explained that they wanted her to be a traditional housewife. That's when my mom jumped in, saying they had always expected my sister to stay home and be a traditional housewife. Her mother-in-law then added, "Traditional wives have children," which felt like a punch to the gut. It was horrifying to hear them so openly criticize my sister for something she couldn't control. The entire conversation was a painful reminder of how rigid and judgmental they were. My sister was just standing there with her head bowed, clearly overwhelmed and hurt by the conversation. It was way too much to see her being judged like that, with criticism and pressure. I looked at my mom, hoping she'd finally stand up for my sister. I knew our parents were stuck in their ways, but I thought maybe this time she'd see how wrong all of this was. But no, she was just nodding along with everyone else like she agreed with them. That was it for me. I couldn't take it anymore. I snapped. I turned to my sister's mother-in-law and yelled at her to just shut up. The room went completely quiet. My mom looked at me like I was the one causing trouble. Before I could say anything else, she jumped in, telling me I should be grateful they were even letting me back into the family. She said they were trying to fix things and that I hadn't changed one bit, still acting like the rebellious daughter who didn't know her place. That was the last straw. I couldn't hold back anymore, so I let it all out. I told them that I wasn't the one who needed to change. They were. I called them out on how they cared more about appearances and traditions than about what really mattered, loving and supporting each other. I told them their obsession with bloodlines and family image was toxic and had only hurt the people who actually cared about them. I looked right at my mom and said, and I quote, "You've spent your whole life worrying about what other people think, but you've never once thought about how your own daughters feel. You act like having kids is the only thing that gives a woman value. That's not love, that's control. You didn't lose me because I was rebellious. You lost me because you never accepted me for who I am. And now you're losing my sister because you're stuck in your old ways of thinking about family." Then I turned to my sister's in-laws and told them that the way they were treating her was cruel and unfair. I reminded them that my sister is a smart, kind, capable woman who deserves way better than their constant criticism. I said, "You're trying to tear her down because she doesn't fit your narrow idea of what a wife should be. But she's stronger than you think, and one day she's going to realize she deserves better than this." By then, the whole room was staring at me, but I didn't care. I was done with pretending. I told him I'd rather be alone than be part of a family that treats people this way. I said, "You can keep your so-called family if it means treating my sister and my daughter like they're less important. Because the truth is, you're the ones who are less than. Less than decent, less than loving, less than what a family should be." Then I turned to my sister and said, "You don't have to stay here and take this. You deserve so much more than this." I took her hand, and for the first time I saw a bit of hope in her eyes. She didn't say anything, but I could tell she was relieved that someone had finally stood up for her. After I finished my rant, my parents just stood there completely silent. They were probably too shocked to even respond. My aunt tried to rile up, maybe to defend them or whatever, but I wasn't in the mood. I shut her down right away. I wasn't about to listen to any more of their nonsense. I didn't stick around after that. I just walked out and went straight home to my daughter. When I got there, I hugged her so tight. She's the only one who truly matters to me. No matter what my family says or does, she's my world, and that's all I need. Later that night, I left my sister a voicemail. I told her that if she ever decides she's had enough of all this, I'm here for her. She doesn't have to go through this alone, and if she ever wants to leave, she's got a place with me. I was not sure if she would take me up on it, but I needed to let her know that she's not stuck there. So I got a call from my mom today. Apparently my sister has started calling them out too, and now they're blaming me for it. My mom actually had the nerve to say they regret inviting me in the first place, claiming that I'm the one ruining the family. I mean, seriously? So Reddit, AITA for standing up for my sister and myself, even if it's causing drama in the family. Update 1. So, Mom called me again today, and this one really takes the cake. She said she'd be willing to let go of all the drama if I agreed to one condition, that I talk to my sister and convince her to stop this whole rebel phase she's apparently going through. I couldn't believe she was serious. I flat out told her no. Then she tried to pull the ultimate guilt trip by saying that she's going to make my daughter her heir, now that she's the only grandchild. I couldn't help it. I literally laughed in her face and hung up. Right after, I called my sister to tell her what our mom had said. She sounded exhausted, like she'd been carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. She asked me to support her, and I told her I'm here for her no matter what. That's when she broke down and said she's just so tired of everything. Her marriage, the family's pressure, all of it. She told me she's seriously thinking about getting a divorce. Now, I'm really feeling for her, but I'm also wondering, am I doing the right thing by standing my ground? Should I be handling this differently? Or is supporting my sister and keeping my distance from our parents the best thing to do? I could really use some advice here, Reddit. Update 2. Hey Reddit, so a lot has gone down since my last post. My sister actually moved in with me yesterday. Yep. She finally packed up and left after a massive fight with her husband. Honestly, I'm so proud of her for taking that step. It's been a long time coming, but things took a wild turn right after. A few hours later, guess who shows up at my door? My parents. They didn't even give me a heads up, just rang the doorbell like it was a casual visit. My daughter was home and I really didn't want to let them in, but they were practically begging to see her. Against every instinct I had, I let them in. Big mistake. As soon as they saw my daughter, they turned on the charm, acting like the most loving grandparents in the world. They were all smiles and sweet words, but I wasn't buying it for a second. I could see right through the act. It was so fake. I didn't want my daughter getting caught up in their BS, so I sent her to her room to play. The minute she was out of sight, the mood shifted. They immediately started in on my sister, trying to guilt her into dropping her attitude and coming back home. Seriously? After everything that's happened? My sister, bless her, wasn't having any of it. She finally snapped and gave them a piece of her mind. She told them exactly how she felt about their manipulative behavior and how they've treated both of us over the years. I couldn't help but feel a little proud watching her stand up to them. But of course, my dad just had to turn it around on me, blaming me for everything like he always does. He was ranting about how I've poisoned my sister's mind, how I'm the root of all the family's problems. I'd had enough and told them straight up that if they didn't leave, I was calling the cops. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? But they just kept pushing, refusing to take no for an answer. Then, out of nowhere, my sister, who's usually the quieter one, yelled that she was going to get a restraining order against them if they didn't back off. I was shocked, but also super proud of her for standing her ground. Honestly, I'm thinking about getting one myself at this point. I'm done with their toxic behavior. The only thing that really bothered me was that all the yelling freaked out my daughter. She's never seen that side of her grandparents, and I hate that she had to witness it. She's been so good through all of this, and it's just not fair to her. I'm seriously considering doing whatever it takes to make sure my parents stay away from us for good. I need to protect her from all of this chaos. Update 3. Hey Reddit, I'm back for what I think will be my last update. Things are finally looking up for us. So, first things first, we did get that restraining order, both my sister and I. I wasn't about to take any chances with them coming after my daughter, and on top of that, my sister officially filed for divorce. She's citing mental harassment, among other things, and honestly, she's got a solid case. We got her a good lawyer who was pretty optimistic about the whole thing. The lawyer mentioned that with everything that's happened, especially the emotional abuse and how they tried to control her life, she stands a really good chance of getting what she wants out of this divorce. It's a huge relief for her and for me too, honestly. We've also started looking for jobs for her. She's super talented, but being out of work for so long has left her feeling a bit rusty. Still, I know she's going to land something great soon. Until then, she's staying with me, and I've made it clear she's welcome here as long as she needs. I want her to take her time and really get back on her feet. Since the restraining order, things have quieted down a lot. Yeah, the rest of the family is probably talking all kinds of stuff about me, but honestly, I couldn't care less. I've made my peace with it, and I'm done worrying about what they think. They can say whatever they want, it's not going to change a thing. I also want to say a big thank you to all you Redditors out there. Your support and encouragement have meant the world to me and my sister. Seriously, you guys help me stay strong through all of this. So, thank you. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.